essentially what this is it's like an offer restructuring problem. But the reality is when it comes to pricing, it's very subjective. What you're doing is you're just reframing the offer to them in a way that speaks kind of their language and what they're after. So, Seth, right on, my man. Maybe you can introduce yourself and sort of your business and all that for anybody watching, give some context on what's going on.
Sure. So my name is Seth Crowell. I own an independently owned fitness training center in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, USA. There's only one. I opened my gym called Sage Strength and Conditioning in 2013. So we're a little over 6 years in now. We're not a part of a franchise. We're not it was just me wearing every single hat 24/7 for 6 years. And those things are starting to change now. And I'm, my biggest goal is learning how to run my business as what it should be, a business owner, and not necessarily to be the person who does every single task, and cleans the floors and coaches the classes and writes the programs. We mostly, we kind of live in two realms of training. One is kind of like the group training model, and the other is like personal training or, individual training model. But currently we're going through a switch where we're trying to get out of as much kind of group approach as possible and really take a more specific approach. We train really two types of people. Well, truthfully, we train one type of person. We train the type of person who has definitive goals that they could write down and they actually want to achieve realistically.
So not general fitness, but rather like sort of athletically minded, or like an athlete, essentially, somebody that really wants to achieve something.
Yeah. I mean, I train a lot of athletes. I have probably a dozen kids committed to D1 scholarships right now. I have probably another dozen in college playing sports right now. I also train, people in other states. I write programs for people who don't work out at my gym. I guess my trainers do also write programs for people all over. But I've also, I've helped people lose 100 pounds. I've lost count of the number of people who've lost 50 pounds, people who have a real desire to make significant change tend to gravitate towards my business rather than the person who's like, I want to get a good workout today so I can go eat some pizza later and, maybe some cookies too.
Right.
That's we're not about the calorie burn. We're not about oh, that was a great workout. We're about, this is your training program, and the understanding that, we're doing this to achieve a specific goal. It just so happens that really lines up well with kids who want to play, Division I sports.
Yeah. So we could say it's like performance based, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, very much so. We really consider everybody who works out with us to be an athlete. They may not play what we consider to be like a sport anymore. But, they're really kind of training for specific needs, specific goals,
yeah.
Really.
Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned group training and personal training. And then essentially, like we were talking about just before here, kind of bridging the gap or finding some alternative service. And that's sort of what you had questions on.
Yeah. So for 6 years, we've basically offered two services. You can join our group. You can join our gym in our group class membership. We have 6 classes a day. You can come to any class that you want. It's a more affordable option. It's still not nearly like the YMCA or anything like that, but it's, it's kind of the entry level. And then if you wanted more specific type of training, then you had to do personal training. So we would meet one-on-one and I would coach you through your sessions. And over 6 years of doing business, I've just come to realize that I don't think that's the best model for what we're trying to achieve. And so, we're trying to kind of reestablish our brand, one as more athlete specific, and reestablish our brand as honestly better than personal training. We're trying with our new approach to writing individual programs, but with ultimate flexibility. We're essentially, trying to, offer a service that fills in all of the gaps that personal training doesn't. There are, personal training in a lot of people's mind is like the epitome of the top of the line. I have a personal trainer, like, oh, my personal trainer told me, but I don't think that's actually the case. I don't think personal training is or will ever be the best way to achieve the desired outcomes with your fitness goals. I think there are better ways to do it.
Cool. So what is this? What's this new one called? This sort of like hybrid version? Like, what are you calling it?
Right now, we call it individual programming, which makes sense to us, but doesn't make sense to a lot of other people.
No, it's definitely very ambiguous. What's involved with individual programming?
Yeah, so essentially, individual program would be a completely custom workout regimen, right? That not like a pre-written workout regimen where it's like, here's your 12-week plan, follow it. It's more like week by week, we write workouts and we edit workouts and we change workouts based on what's happening in someone's training. So if you wanted individual programming, it would look like I would essentially give you a week's worth of workouts to do that I've written based on assessing you, like physically, but also based on like what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve. And then next week's workouts would be based on what we do this week and kind of your results in and around training. So it's a super, detailed and involved way. You'd essentially be hiring me to be your coach.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. I follow. So is the question then essentially how to position this new service or how to sell more of it or how to make it seem like this is the pinnacle?
Yeah, I think, I honestly, we've been lucky enough in 6 years to do well enough with the results of our clients that, we started offering this and it's just like we've been slammed. So I don't necessarily need to sell more of it, but I need, I always run into the issue of wanting to be super technician, my gym's called Sage Strength and Conditioning. Strength and conditioning to a lot of people doesn't mean anything. I always want to use the truest form of the word. And there are times, even recently, that I've sat with clients and I've not been able to describe, why this is the best option for them. And, I can tell them why I created it, but they've never actually been through those problems with scheduling and pricing and all of those things to understand where I'm coming from. Like, this is the first time we've ever met, and I'm telling you why I'm going to try to convince you that an individual program, that your kid will execute supervised is better than a one-on-one trainer.
Yeah.
Because those people, there's nothing better than one-on-one.
Yes.
It's just, there is something better than one-on-one. I have it. I have the answer, but I don't know how to make people believe me.
Okay, right on. Yeah, no, man, I totally get it. Essentially what this is it's like an offer restructuring problem. So essentially we've got something that, and this is what so many businesses go through as well, is that everybody knows, and in one way they've got a better product or a better service or something that solves a problem better than someone else's. But the problem is this sort of inability to articulate why it's better, why it's different in a way that actually matters to the end consumer. So yeah, like you mentioned exactly, it's like, you've got all the sort of the facts and the logistics, and the way your mind works is like, yeah, we're going to structure it out here. But to someone that's outside of the fitness industry, all they hear is like words that don't mean things to them because they've got a different context. And especially if we're taking like the literal translation of a word, like the problem is a lot of these words are kind of subjective, especially when you have no context around it. So they have no idea. They just hear different things. So I think the first step is really dialing in sort of the ideal target market that you've already got in mind, the people that have already gone through this, the athletes, and really figuring out and this because we've talked about this one before, the miracles and miseries. It's like, well, what are the miseries? Those exact pains, problems, frustrations, everything that they're battling with, that this program solves. And when you can sort of position it that way, it's like, okay, well, you know how you mentioned that, yeah, you go through a program, but halfway through you plateau because it's not getting adapted? Well, by using, what do we have, individual programming, we actually solve that problem by ensuring that week to week we're going over this. And hey, you know how we spoke before and you were mentioning that you get results for the first 2 weeks, but then things just fall off and you don't know what to do after that? Well, we solve that by using this different thing. And so essentially what I want you to do first is really identify those like exact pains or problems they have. And then from there, what we need to do is we need to come up with some kind of terminology or verbiage that allows us to put some IP, some intellectual property around it, so that you're the one to deliver it using this custom formula. For example, like words that I wrote down as you were talking there is like progressive adaptation. So as you're going through this, what they're doing is you're continually adapting this program. And here's why this is better than personal training. Because we're going to be doing this and this and this. Also, I wrote down performance optimization. So this is sort of what athletes might be looking for, is like, yes, you've hit this level. This is how we take you to the next one. It's like, this is like, you've achieved what you can by doing hard work and talent and blah, blah, blah. But now by using individual programming or whatever we decide to call it, this is how you sort of get to the next one. So essentially what you're doing is you're just reframing the offer to them in a way that speaks kind of their language and what they're after. So essentially, if their main thing that they want with personal training is that attention, then you've got to explain why this is either going to give them that same level or more. So anything that they're associating with personal training, you want to find the benefits that they're getting and you want to apply it to this and make it even better. And it's very subjective because you could explain, it's like, yeah, you could have a personal trainer, we'll work together for an hour, but then they're not really available after that. It's like, yeah, we can discuss this next time. Or you can actually have this option. Now, one trick here, I'll finish my rant before I turn it back over. One trick here is that, especially how we price it, is like, if we're going to make this seem more valuable than even personal training, typically it will be priced higher because it's just going to be more valuable. So we're going to have a bit of a shift we're going to have to take people through if we price it less than that like most expensive thing. But anyway, thoughts, ideas?
Yeah, no, I mean, first thought while you talked was one, I realized I've been currently selling it to people based on problems they might have in the future, not problems they currently have. I've been saying, this is why personal training has downsides, but they don't have a personal trainer. They've never actually experienced those downsides. And I'm like, this is how your life will be so terrible if you buy my service. You know, like, and it's also my most expensive service. So yeah, no, I'd never thought about that before, ever. So anyway, that's what I've been doing, which obviously needs to change. And yeah, it'll be, I don't know what to do necessarily about the pricing thing, given that, like, you know, we're currently personal training, you know, acts as kind of our price anchor. You know, you could do personal training for $700 a month, or you could do an individual approach. And one of the problems that solves is that it's half the price, right? So right now PT acts as my price anchor. The problem is sometimes people want the anchor, you know, not the step down.
Yeah. And to clarify, you want to sell the step down more than you want to sell the personal training, the high price one.
I could just take personal training off altogether.
Yeah.
Then I don't have then I won't have a price anchor. At least that's been my reasoning so far. I'm not saying it's good reasoning, but you know, then I don't have anything to anchor my prices on, because for most people, a $300 gym membership is still not a very cheap gym membership.
Yeah. Well, the problem here,
this is always a problem for me. Come on, let's go.
I know. Here's the problem. So there's a couple things going on. The first of which is that you're calling it a gym membership, and it's not a gym membership.
It's not. I know.
Like when you're like, what's happening is we're using comparisons for the wrong ones. So we can never refer to it as a gym membership again. Like a gym membership's 30, 40, 50, 60 bucks or whatever it is. This is not even close. So we can't call it that. So it's like, what happens when we have pricing is and this is a really cool conversation because it's on behavioral economics, which is super nerdy and super deep. But the reality is when it comes to pricing, it's very subjective. And what we try to do with pricing is we make these sort of almost subconscious comparisons with whatever we can put it against. So when you say it's like $300 for a gym membership, yeah, like that's going to be crazy, right? Because they'll be like, well, I'll just do that. So we want to compare it. It's like, well, it's $300, but personal training's here, or it's $300, but if I came and lived with you and did everything for you, it'd be multiple hundred thousands a year. It's like, so it's like those are kind of the parallels we want to draw. The second thing is, yeah, I'm all for having a price anchor. I like those 3 pricing tiers of having, say, group, the individual programming in the middle, and personal training. There's a couple things you can do to make personal training basically less attractive and still price it. The first one is we just increase the prices. Like it's really simple. It's like we make it so expensive that it is either worth your time, so that if someone does pick it, you're going to be like, all right, this is worth it. It's super expensive and I can justify it. Or we basically price it out of the market to make everything look cheaper. And that's kind of a wash there for which one you want to do. But I'm all for having it still, because I think there's going to be that 20% of your market that's going to want that service regardless of the price. And again, what we'll want to do is we'll want to make this thing just seem more valuable as well. I'm all for like sort of adding value with the price rather than just like raising the price. And then again, if we get any buyers for it, they're going to be happy. You're going to be happy. It'll all make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to, I would love for the word cheap to leave my vocabulary when it comes to my business, because we aren't like, and I don't want anything to ever be cheaper than anything else, like not even cheaper than personal training. It's just different. In the world of keeping your beer cold, we're going to be a Yeti, not, what you pick up at Walmart. Like it's just how that's how we're going to stay alive. That's the service that we provide. And this is honestly like, if we're just getting into like personal issues, this is one of the harder things for me. I've tried to essentially give memberships away in the past, and it never works because there's no buy-in. I do want, I want buy-in. I want people to vote with their wallets.
Well, there's a couple things here. For starters, it's like, the expression, it's those who pay attention. And there's a reason, like, we have to get that buy-in. You're absolutely right. Like, it's crucial. The second thing is that if you think about, like, the standard positioning map of, say, like, price and then quality over here, and you've got the line going from, like, low price, low quality to high price, high quality, there's nothing that's better than the other, but they're different. And we've got to decide, like, where on the positioning map we're going to occupy. And you can't be high quality, low price, or you go out of business. Just like you can't be low quality, high price, or nobody buys your stuff. So it's like you can claim whatever period you want, which is really the high quality, higher price, and that's fantastic because you're going to attract that more serious person. I'm as far as the spectrum goes, I'd way rather see you up there anyways. So I think it is just sort of this mental acceptance of like, yeah, these are our rates. You don't get kickback on it, right? Like people, they don't seem to balk at it. Otherwise you wouldn't be busy. So it's like, we're okay there. And in fact, normally that indicates that there's actually more margin in your business. Like if you're never getting price objections and nobody ever says, wow, this is just way too expensive and I can't afford it, it probably means that you are undercharging. Like there should be some resistance at some point from some people, which is going to indicate that, you basically have some more room.
Right. Yeah, that's, and I forget constantly that, if I could build the more like kind of financially robust I can build my business to be, the more I actually have potential to help people.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't help. Yeah, you can't help anybody if you don't have customers, and you can't help anybody if the business goes under. And profit margin allows you to hire better trainers and more of them, and provide better services, and expand to help more and increase your you know all that. So my man, I think you're right. Like the reality here is that we've got to sell for the problems that they have right now. And then essentially, I like the point that you said you're selling for a problem that they don't have yet. What's cool about that is we want to include that, but we tack it onto the end. So it's like, look, these are all the problems you have right now. We're going to solve all them. And then once you've got those all solved, we're even going to solve this other problem. But it's not the other way around. It's like, this is sort of the add-on bonus. It's like, and by the way, when you're just absolutely at the pinnacle of your game and you think there's nowhere to go but up, that's when we add this final thing that really sort of pushes it over the edge and takes you even to that next level. So it's like, really just understanding why they're there and what they're hoping to get out of it, and then phrasing it that way. And then I think for the pricing, yeah, you've got your group training, which brings people in, allows them to get familiar with the gym. So you price that at X on the low end. You put your individual programming in the middle, and then you put your personal training really high. And then you just drive people to individual programming because it's best for them. And you explain it. You let them make their own decisions, but you're like, here are the things based on our conversation together. I believe the best approach for you would be individual programming. Based on my experience, my knowledge of what you just told me, people like that. Like your job as the business owner or as the salesperson or the marketer or whatever is to basically be the diagnostician. So it's like you're going to listen, you're going to take in all the information, you're going to evaluate, you're the expert. I mean, they don't know. Yeah, think of how crazy that'd be. You'd be like, yeah, I'm going to do group training or personal. It's like, I have no idea. It's like, you got to tell me. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I've really appreciated that. I mean, you worked with me a lot on that in the past, like with our no sweat session and, really trying to give value away, and the reason we started working together in the first place was because we did a 1 hour phone call, and I was like, holy crap, if I got this much goodness out of this hour and I haven't even paid him yet, what am I going to get when, we're really doing business together? And that's honestly like, we kind of built our no sweat session around what I experienced before you and I ever started really working together. And we want to maintain that. And I think that's just a good reminder that like the point of that, and like the point of our first meeting with anyone is to give them advice on what they need to do, not to offer them services.
Yeah, it's a powerful sales shift because I've never considered myself a salesman ever. Like sales was never my thing, which is why I sort of fell in love with marketing because I thought if I could do marketing, I didn't have to do sales. Little did I realize that if you do sales right, it's just that. It's like, all right, where are you at? I've got the information. Let me prescribe what I think is best for you. It's your call. You do what you want. But I think here, like when you have these conversations through the no sweat session, through whatever conversations you have, yeah, just like take your notes, go through it all, get their pains, and then make sure that you've got points. And this is sort of something I'd make sure you drilled out is like under individual programming, the like 3 to 5 bullet points of kind of what they get and what that is a solution to. So that way when they're like, well, what's your biggest goal? And what's stopping you from achieving that? And all this. You'll be like, cool. So you mentioned this. Well, that's why we have this, which overcomes that. And you mentioned that, and that's why we're going to do this. So that's never a problem again. And then you mentioned getting lazy or having this. Well, that's why we have this. It ensures that. So it's like always sort of overcoming. And then by the end, it's kind of the clear and obvious and only solution for them.
Yeah. Now, how would you, like, let's say we were in a meeting, and we were at this point of the conversation, how would you actually like present this? Would you have a sheet that, like I'd say I'm meeting with someone in person most of the time, would you just say, well, this is, I would recommend 3 days a week of individual programming right now, and that is this price? Or should I have a laminated piece of paper like that I hand them that has our prices on it and they can read over? Like, thoughts?
Yeah, thoughts. So different people are going to have different needs for the kind of information they want. Also, people are going to make, like they've already made the decision essentially emotionally. They've already made it. But they're going to need to back it up logically and rationally later. So I don't mind having materials that you can leave them with. What I think I'd prefer you do though is almost like a doctor with a prescription pad. So if you have like your blank sheet of paper, I love my yellow legal sheets. It's like I always have one of those. And what I would do is I'd have the client name on top. I'd have this like one-on-one consultation. I'd be writing out their notes, their goals. Then I'd basically write them a prescription. And I'd be like, this is the solution. Here are the details. What are your thoughts? And I'd try to get probably buy-in right away. Like, what do you think? Would you like to join? When would you like to start? The usual type of conversations. Great. Here's how we do that. Here's how we schedule you in. Here's how we get the first one. And I think you'll find that that's pretty much all you need. If someone's like, yes, I'd like to think about it, we want to go talk, you'd be like, great, here's some information. And that's where I like to have, we may have talked about this before, that shock and awe package. And it's like, all right, great, here's some information for you. And you might have your papers, you might give them a t-shirt or a water bottle, like whatever it is. You send them away with something and be like, let me know. Let's have a call. I'll call you in 24 hours or whatever it is, sleep on it, make the right decision. But I think you'll find that for the most part, yeah, just sort of taking that personal approach, and you're going to do, your close percentage will probably increase. Not that it's low anyways. You're already doing great with it. So
yeah, so we've got like a form we call, the personal success guide that we send them home with right now. Um, we also have like a laminated piece of paper with our prices on it. Personal training, individual programming, group stuff, but I don't ever send prices home with anyone. I might take that personal success guide that I fill out and put the number down if they're not making the decision, right then, with options on it. But I have yet to ever send someone home with like our pricing, any type of price sheet. I don't want anybody to ever like come back in like 3 months and be like, I have your prices right here. Like I would like to join. It's like, well, that was 3 months ago or 3 years ago. Like,
I get that concern. I'm actually less concerned with that and more concerned with them taking the price sheet home, because then it becomes a decision based on price rather than a decision based on the value that they're going to get from it. So it's like, if they can't, and the reason people make price-based decisions is because they can't clearly differentiate the benefits of one solution over another. That's when we revert to price. So it's like, if we can't decide that this is clearly for me and the best one, I mean, just like brands of soap. You're just like, I guess, I don't know, that one's $3, that one's $4. There's no real difference. They're all the same. But if it's like, this one is going to get me that D1 scholarship, which is my dream. This is something I've worked for 17, 18 years, my entire life. I'm like, nobody's going to be crying over $100 here or there, like, especially when we basically spell out like this is the solution to it. So yeah, I don't think we need that. I think sort of running them through the normal process and avoiding all that's just fine. Give them some bare details if they need on the programs and the details, but I think all of that's for the conversation. For that, like one-on-one, it's like, well, when is it? Here's when it is. What other questions do you have? When would you be available? I try to do as much as I can in person like that, so you can answer those questions.
Yeah, we're usually fairly good at that. So do you think I should be, anchoring with personal training at all, or it's just this is, or with any other? It doesn't have to be personal training, with any other service.
Yeah, I like anchoring with it. So I'll be like, okay, great. Based on what you told me just now, let me tell you a little bit about what we have to offer. For starters, we do have personal training packages. This is the standard personal training. We work one-on-one. We do this. It's at X dollars, which is crazy high. I don't think that's right for you, however, but just to let you know. We also have group training, which is just come and show up and do whatever you want. That's way down on the other end. Based on what you told me as well, I don't think that's right for you either. What I do think is right is an individual programming package. Basically, you know how you mentioned this? Well, that's going to take care of that. You mentioned this, that's going to take care of it. You know this, that's going to take care. That's priced at this, which is significantly less than our personal training, but still provides you all of this additional value. And it's more flexible and blah, blah, blah. So honestly, I think that's the best for you, but whichever you think would suit you best it's up to you. And that's it. That'd be my sales pitch.
Yeah. What do you think? Let's say is a little bit of a hypothetical question. Let's say we didn't offer personal training. We just don't offer personal training anymore. And we just stopped having group classes, and we decided we're going to be this new individual programming, all the time. Do you think that would affect this delivery at all? And besides, obviously, you wouldn't have prices to give people. And if so, how? I guess how?
So if you do have one thing, first of all, I'd want you to have levels of it anyways, because there's always going to be that 20% of the market that wants more, and there's always going to be that 20% that wants a little bit less. So it's like, for example, if you have something and you break it up into a payment package, you're probably going to sell more by having the payment options. So that's one thing. But in regards to like, will you sell less or more? It's hard to say unless we know what the real market demands are and which segment or cohort of the market you want to go after. Like if there's enough demand for this and the market's big enough, yeah, it shouldn't affect it too much. You just have to take a look at like, all right, what's my business? How much of it is comprised of this and versus that? That's something I'd probably work into gradually. Like I wouldn't just cut them all out. I also like the idea of having them at least for now until sort of this individual programming becomes the meat of the business. Like once it's taking up the majority of the revenue, it's providing most of the business, then you can start to fade the other two out. And I'd start by just fading them out, making them less available, more expensive on both ends, whatever the case, and driving more people to the middle.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that's like the route. I guess I asked because, I think next Tuesday night, I have, a no sweat session with a high school kid who is going to do individual programming, or he's not going to train at Sage, because that's really like where I can fit him. I don't have the room to constantly bring on new personal training clients. That's why we started offering this. And he's also not a fit to jump into my classes. So I'm thinking through, like, I already know 100% that this is going to be, his membership. If he decides to join, this is going to be his membership. So, would it be of any value to think through, like, different levels of this type of membership now? Or is it just like the third option of our personal training, group training, individual programming model?
Yeah, good question. I think right now, until it sort of gets a little more traction, we just leave it as the third option. Yeah, we don't break it out into levels yet. We'll just keep it simple and be like, look, we have personal training and we have group training. Both of those are full, but they're not right for you anyway. So it's like, so we have this one. This is really the best plan for you. It's really what I think you should do. And if he's like, well, I want this or I want that, you'd be like, okay, they're full. They're also not right for you. So you can do a wait list, but they're not right for you. Like, really. And here's why, based on what you told me and all that. So yeah, no, I'd wait for now. Let's build out the individual programming and drive more traffic there, essentially. And then as it grows, we can start to think about kind of fading the others out.
Do you have any thoughts on, like, I think we'll always offer some group, at least 1 or 2 classes in the morning, 1 or 2 classes in the evening. Like, it's fun. It's a good environment. Like, I want to help people, like, who just want to, like, be fit and have fun and enjoy their life. Cause I'm one of those people kind of now. Like, I'm not going to be a 31-year-old D1 athlete, it's, but, I guess, do you have any thoughts off the top of your head about, like, percentage revenue numbers, that we should be aiming for? Yeah, like, I guess, we used to be 60-40, 60%, group, 40% personal training in terms of numbers. That's much less people in personal training because it's 3 times the price. But, in terms of percentage, and now we're essentially added, 25 kids at this new model, so we're looking at, it's taking up percentage points.
Cool.
And I would.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would basically look at, like, so we have these 3 tiers. One of the questions is like, where's our most margin, right? And like, where do we want to push people? We already know the answer. Like, we want to push them to the middle. So I would just start steering people there. And I'd worry less about, like, where it's coming. As long as they're still profitable, then we keep them. And as long as they're still manageable, then we keep them. If they start to really drag down, then we don't have to offer them so much. And we really don't have to emphasize them. We can just drive more people to individual programming. But in regards to, like, what percentage to split for, I mean, ideally, eventually, we'd probably be at 100% individual programming. But I'm less concerned with the time frame it takes us to get there, as long as group training is still profitable and sustainable. And it also kind of acts as a feeder, and it does give you access to other people. So I like having something like that. It's kind of like your lead magnet, almost. It's like, yeah, here's our easy to join tripwire type offer. Come on in, get familiar, tell your friends, I know this person, I know this person. So having something like that, yeah, it can be beneficial as well. All right, I hope you found that conversation valuable. If you'd like to have a conversation about marketing your business, I've placed a link to my Work With Me page beside this video, which is going to give you a few different ideas and options on how we may be able to work together. So if that's something you'd like to learn more about, just simply click the link beside, and I look forward to talking to you soon.